One critic calls it astonishing, another calls it captivating, still another calls it astounding. Someone called it extraordinary, and yet another person called it breathtaking. And to me, it was all this and more. Nicole Krauss in The History of Love gives us something special. Yes, this novel is special. It's not just the acrobatic feat of storytelling that Nicole Krauss accomplishes in this novel, as one critic called it. It's the page-by-page box of matches igniting over and over again in prose and poetry. From the invitation into the elder world of Leopold Gursky to the inner world of the teenage, aching Alma Singer, to the glimpses that we, the reader, are privileged to have of the book, The History of Love, that the novel orbits around, this book leaves us bruised and battered and tossed and torn with each breaking wave. I was left with the sensation of being softened. It was as though hard places within me suddenly had sinew and muscle and blood flow. Every page softened me. And maybe that's the kind of praise that an author can aim for and shoot for, that your novel was something that softened its readers, that ignited something within them that brought about a softening, like a revolution inside. I mean, just to say that your novel was igniting and softening in under 300 pages, which The History of Love is astonishing in its own right. The story could easily have taken a back seat to Nicole Krauss's masterful wielding of the English language and the poetry and prose that she presents her story within, but it doesn't. What I mean is, with the kind of igniting and softening poetry and prose that this novel embodies, the story could have easily been less ambitious and less ingenious, but Krauss leaves no holds barred and goes full force into her craft to write what we have here, The History of Love, a special novel. But the story and the weaving of characters and plot lines and the way it all masterfully moves towards this grand finale, it all showcases the skill of this master storyteller, this master poet. Sometimes you have a master of poetry writing a story, and sometimes you have a master storyteller writing poetically. But here, in Nicole Krauss, we are gifted with both. I should mention here, and if you've watched any of my other book reviews, you probably have noticed this, but I don't like to give away a lot of the plot line of the books that I'm reviewing, because for me, as a reader, part of the joy of reading and diving into a world that a novelist and author creates is to discover all that as the author intended it to be, page by page. So how can you be sure that this is the kind of book that you want to read if I don't tell you anything about the plot line or the characters or what happens to them? I guess my hope is that my enthusiasm will be contagious for you and that you will be drawn to read the books that I'm recommending because of the impact you see that they've had on me. Of course, I know that that trust takes time for me to build with you, my viewer, so I'm not expecting that you would take my recommendations to the bank, but try to cash this check that I am writing you now. Nicole Krauss's The History of Love will pay for itself. It barely skips a beat. There are few pages of the 252 that slow down that softening sensation and that igniting sensation that the novel is characterized by. Trust me when I say that literally almost every single page in The History of Love softens and ignites. I guess the image that I have is one of Nicole Krauss putting her hands into the raw dough of her readers' hearts and kneading them into a softness and igniting them with her poetry. Should you read The History of Love by Nicole Krauss? It was sensational. Yes, you should read it. Drink it deeply. Meet Leopold Gursky and Alma Singer and Isaac Moritz and Bird. Find in Nicole Krauss's poetry and prose the story that is not only ambitious, but in its own right is, as the critic said, an acrobatic feat with flips and daring moments of barely making it work, but making it work in such a seamless, flawless way that all the reader can do is marvel. The end of the book, after being so softened and so ignited, leaves you breathless. The History of Love by Nicole Krauss. Find it and read it. I highly recommend it. You will find in this book pages and pages of a softening and igniting sensation, and more than that, you will find that bread-like kneading of dough, and in it you will find yourself, a mirror of your own aches, heartaches, regrets, and nostalgias. And I hope that you find yourself softened.